to the Laundry List. My name is Todd. I am your host. I'm coming at you live from Newport Beach, Fashion Island. We got Soraya in Scottsdale. We got Charles in Scottsdale. And then we got Blake and Katie in New York. So we're glad we could all connect here and talk about the laundry list, talk about emotions, talk about family dysfunction, talk about how to have healthier relationships. And I know it's been a whirlwind of a week for me. And I'd like to hear, from Charles and Blake and Katie and Soraya and see how their week's going too. Before we get too deep into it though, let's have Charles read the laundry list, which is what we based our podcast on, the 14 traits of an adult child of a family dysfunction. So Charles, take it away.
You got it. Todd, God, it looks great where you are. It's nice to have everyone distributed. So these are the 14 traits that our podcast is built around. Number one, we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. Number two, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. Number three, we are frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. Number four, we either became alcoholics, marry them, or both, or find another compulsive personality such as a workaholic to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. Number five, we live life from the viewpoint of victims and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. I see you nodding, Todd. I mean, this is just, might as well be describing you. Number six, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. And this enables us not to look too closely at our own faults. Number seven, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. Number eight, we became addicted to excitement. Number nine, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and ultimately rescue. Number 10, we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and have lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. This is also known as denial. Number 11, we judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem. Number 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience those painful abandonment feelings. And we usually receive those from living with sick people who were never there emotionally for us. Number 13, alcoholism is a family disease, and we became para-alcoholics and took on the characteristics of that disease, even though we never picked up a drink. And finally, para-alcoholics, also known as codependents, are reactors rather than actors. Tony A, 1978.
Tony A. Yeah, he was a he was a guy who really was a disciple of AA and really got into recovery through the 12 steps of AA and realized there was something missing. There was something missing besides just kicking the booze and the drugs. There was something else. So I'm so glad he dug deep into his childhood to figure out that there was something that was broken from an early age that he was unable to put his finger on as an adult. And he did the work. He did countless hours of work with therapists and other coaches and figured out that, these 14 traits affected him as a kid and continues to affect him as an adult, and created the ACA program, which is, I just find, still relatively unknown. Very, very few people I know in 12-step programs know a lot about ACA. So I'm so grateful that, we found it, guys, and we were able to heal that child who was wounded and also have more tools at our disposal to deal with life on life's terms. This morning I had therapy and I was crying, and I have tools today to deal with a lot of these tools I didn't have as a kid. I needed the laundry list to survive because I didn't know how to express feelings. I didn't know how to deal with shame. I didn't know how to deal with anxiety and all kinds of different types of fear. And today I have tools to deal with these things. They're not life-threatening like they were as a child and even before I came into ACA. So, I'm glad you guys are here. I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but let's just ask Kate. Is it Katie or Kate?
It's Katie or Kay, whichever, really.
What do you prefer?
Katie's fine.
Okay. I sense you might have a little bit of ACA traits because you weren't firm on that answer.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So, Kay, what's your first opinion of hearing these traits and kind of a little bit of the commentary we've had? What's your kind of initial, feedback and feeling on what we're talking about?
Very much relatable for me. I come from a very, I guess, complicated, complex childhood as well. And it's a lot of things I think that you can't really put your finger on until you go through it, I guess, for a long time. But
right. Yeah. I had a mother who was a disciplinarian, very strict. And I used to wear that as a badge of honor. Like, my mom is kick ass. She's ruthless. She's tough. And I'm like, she's making me into a tough little boy, tough man. And what I realized is she made me into those 14 traits as a young boy. And as an adult, I just thought that's what you do. You people please. You make sure there's no conflict. You make sure people like you. You make sure people are giving you validation and approval. You don't stand up for yourself too much because it might ruffle the feathers of the mood or the other people. So, do you ever catch yourself being a people pleaser or trying to fit in like a chameleon?
Absolutely, all the time. I think I try to people please before it's even requested of me. A lot of the times, I take the initiative to soothe other people before myself, the majority.
Yeah. And so what would happen, you think, if you stood up for yourself and started to not people please and speak your mind, speak your truth? Do you think it'd be a little scary at first?
I would feel an immediate sense of guilt for some reason. And then, yes, it's definitely scary. I think I'm scared of losing the relationships or connections with those people if I voice how I really feel or felt at a moment in time, for sure.
Yeah. And what I found, and that was very, very much my reaction, very scary to rock the relationships, have somebody mad at me, somebody disapprove of me. But what I found after doing the work and standing up for myself, I found that people actually respect me more, and they actually look up to me to the point where it's like a real relationship, and they value my opinion and they want to get to know me more because I am speaking my true self. You hear a lot in this program we're talking about the true self and the false self. The false self was the laundry list. The true self is who I really am. I like the color white. I don't like the color blue. I like going to the beach. I don't like the snow, whatever it is. But you're speaking your truth. Where for so many years, everyone, my ex-wife used to go, where do you want to go to dinner? I'd be like, oh, wherever you want to go, honey. And I didn't have an opinion. And she'd be like, let's go to Chinese. And I'd be like, oh, I hate Chinese. But I didn't want to say anything, because I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to be yelled at. And people don't like that. It's not a real relationship. It's lying. It's completely lying and cheating in a relationship.
I think that's something
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's something that I witnessed with my parents. My father was the disciplinarian. My mother was very, very submissive, didn't really have much of a voice or an opinion in many things. And so for a long time, I thought that's just was the right thing to do, was just kind of sit back and not have too many opinions about things.
Yeah. Well, they say, you become one of your parents and you marry the other one. And I became my dad and sort of married my mom because that made me feel safe. So I thought, I thought it made me feel safe. And, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work because the other person doesn't respect you. And the other person becomes someone they don't want to become either in the roles. And it's like you almost set up these roles to what you're familiar with and what you're comfortable with in a relationship. And I know, Charles, you've experienced that. Blake, you've experienced it. And I think now we're getting to the point where we've done the work to know that we don't have to take on anybody's role. We can find out who we really are. And it might be scary at first, but people are going to come and go, but we're going to be our true self no matter what.
Yeah. And there's so much, even though there's, for at least for me, with all that has transpired in the last 3 weeks, there's a lot of pain, but there's also a lot of relief and comfort all at the same time. Right. There's a lot of uncomfortability, but it also is like there's this sense of relief and this sense of like, you know, the whole kind of notion of like being a beginner again and like being able to do what I want, say what I want. You know, I can. It's like I'm free. Like I'm free of it. You know.
Well, you got to mourn the loss of the relationship, but then there's freedom. Like I don't have to do this dance anymore, and it's fucking exhausting. You know.
I didn't even. God. And I didn't even realize like how much of the stuff subconsciously like I did because I was trying to protect 6-year-old Blake, and how many things in just how I would go about my day-to-day life was because I was that scared 6-year-old kid that didn't want you to leave me, didn't want you to be angry at me, didn't want you to, you know, be disappointed with me, wanted you to tell me that I'm the greatest. And now like, it's pretty cool to be able to sit there with 6-year-old Blake and be like, hey dude, like I feel for you. Like, I'm not telling you not to have the feelings, but we're going to get through this together. It's like, it's pretty cool. Did Todd freeze?
I think he froze.
I froze. Soraya?
I'm here.
So Blake, I'll pick up on that while we wait for something unfrozen. I did a lot of
froze for a second.
Are you back, Todd? You're not frozen anymore?
So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of that in every single relationship. Todd, you back? I'm talking about some people pleasing examples in my relationships that I look back on. I was like, what the hell was I thinking? It'd be things like, yeah, honey, I don't mind doing the grocery shopping, cooking the dinner, and then doing all the dishes, right? Basically, I didn't want to do any of that, but I'm doing it because it's what I think I need to do to preserve the relationship. But all of it's dishonest, right? No, you're right, honey. I don't like that guy. That is a bad guy to be around. And usually they're referring to Todd, right? Well, it's because, hey, anyone I'm having fun with, that's not them, right? Then they take threat to that. And those are the type of relationships that I've been in. And then what do? I adjust things that are dishonest to me. And I'm saying that they're true to me. Like, yeah, you're right. I don't particularly like that guy. Yeah, I don't like that team. Yeah, I'm happy that this happened that way. Yes, I want to go to that restaurant. Yes, I like that movie, even though I thought it was the worst fucking movie ever. Yes, I enjoy doing the dishes and taking everything in while you don't have a job, right? So and then those things they build up inside of me. And why am I doing it? I'm doing it because that's what I think needs to be done so that this person likes me, right? So that this person
and not only likes you, but doesn't leave you.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it all.
They don't even have to like you. They don't even have to like you.
Yeah,
like, I don't even care if they like me. Just don't leave me. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's ultimately what, in the end, what it's all about is don't leave me, right? So, yeah, that's what a sad place to be. I mean, that's the ultimate form of dishonesty that I can be, because now they don't even know. Let's say if I'm looking for love or I'm looking for companionship, they don't even know who they're loving. I've been so dishonest with myself and with them. They don't even know who it is that they're loving. I'm just the guy that gives them everything so that they don't leave. And I'm so glad that.
So I don't know if you've experienced this, but you know, in hearing what you're saying, Charles, it's like I will be that chameleon and that people pleaser in the laundry list. And then at some point I can't take it any longer.
Correct. Because
it's so uncomfortable. And it's such a feeling of dishonesty, like you said, that eventually I blow. I just clean the kitchen counter. I just throw something. I just scream at the wife and kids because I just can't take it anymore, being this dishonest person and the false self, that I just blow, because that energy has to go somewhere. That dishonest, negative energy has to go somewhere. And I physically just blow and yell at my wife and kids and just boom, you know, and then it's like I feel a little bit better, but then I feel guilty for blowing up and standing up a little bit for myself.
Yeah, but who created the ticking time bomb to begin with? Me. Right. And I'm so resentful against them. I can't believe that they had me do all that shit when I was the one doing it. It's really wild. And it's something that is just this constantly revolving circle that's really hard to break. It's hard to get out.
So no wonder why we went to drinking, drugs, you know, and I'll even throw a new one on there. Health anxiety. I need some kind of relief or dissociative behavior to get rid of the 14 traits of the laundry list, because it's so painful to live in those 14 traits that I need something else to distract my mind and to give myself some relief. And one of the things I picked up was a health anxiety. I started creating all these health anxieties that I had to give myself a distraction to all the 14 traits that I was living at the time of being dishonest and not being honest with myself and with other people. And those, the health anxiety is extremely dangerous because it gets to a point where you're completely obsessed with whatever the health anxiety is. In my case, it was my sinuses. And all I could think about 24/7 was my sinuses weren't working and I was never going to be able to breathe again. And literally I got to the point where I didn't sleep for 3 nights straight. 3 nights straight. I was hallucinating. I was never in the moment. I had massive adrenaline, massive heart rate, massive blood pressure. And all I could think about was my sinuses, because I created this health anxiety to create pain for myself so I didn't have to feel the laundry list. I didn't have to feel those traits. Can you guys relate to, and sometimes it's gambling, sometimes it's gossip, sometimes it's isolation, but it's some other form of behavior that is creating a distraction from the laundry list.
Todd, wouldn't that mirror, in a weird way, wouldn't that mirror how we focus on others so we don't have to look at the weird shit that's going on in our life? So if we truly are stuck with ourselves, now I'm focusing on things within me, but it's like, okay, I've got sinus issue. I have ALS. I'm just going to throw out some different things, right? Just as examples, because it's funny you bring that up, but throughout the history of I've always been dying of something, right? There's always,
right.
We just joked around about a guy that you had lunch with, right? That always has some new ailment. Well, it's really not that fun to joke around with, but isn't that another way to focus on something else other than the laundry list traits? I've got to focus on this mystery ailment that I have instead of looking inward on maybe what is more of a root cause. But yeah, all of the things I thought were going to kill me that I had, I wound up not having any of them. And maybe that's a different version of taking the focus off of looking inward and focusing on things that are killing us that aren't even real, or something we can read about in a book, And
all we have to do is, read the promises in our program. In the ACA program, we read the promises, and basically it's the inverse of the laundry list. So we are going to stand up for ourselves, and we are going to be our true self. We are going to be able to love ourselves and not rescue others. We are going to be able to speak our truth and not people please. Like, it's the inverse. So by just doing that, all these other distractions, whether it's alcoholism, gambling, shopping addiction, gossip, feeling bad about ourselves and talking negative thoughts to ourselves, whatever it is, all that shit goes away when you just do the inverse of the laundry list. When you just become your true self, regardless of the person stays or leaves, parents are mad at you, not mad at you, kids are mad at you, not mad at you. It doesn't matter, because you're your true self. And you're okay with that. You're okay with people's reaction to who you are.
Yeah. I mean, Todd, what did you end up doing to get out of the health anxiety?
Good question.
Lots of drugs, lots of I went on antidepressants, and I think I went on Valium to fall asleep. And what's funny is that I figured out where it stemmed from, because I had no idea where it stemmed from. And here's where it stemmed from. It was very interesting. So my ex-wife decided that the family should move to Laguna Beach. And I'm like, absolutely, honey, that sounds great. I'm like really excited. I love Laguna Beach. And so we packed up, we moved to Laguna Beach. Well, after a year, I fucking hated it. And I missed my friends, and I missed my family, and I missed my business associates. But I was too afraid to tell my ex-wife that I hated it. I wanted to move back. So I created this health anxiety as a trauma response and an event to get into the hospital to where she would eventually move back. Instead of just saying, honey, I don't like it and I want to move back, she probably would have said, okay, fine, let's move back. But I was too scared to even speak my truth. So I created this incredible situation where I had 2 sinus surgeries and literally almost went fully insane, like signing up for the Meadows for a 3-week intensive program to deal with mental illness. All I had to do was tell her I didn't want to go. And that's eventually what I did. And after I told her that I wanted to move back, She's like, okay, that sounds good. I get it. And literally the health anxiety went away within a week.
That's awesome.
I mean, it went away in a week because that's what the root was. I was afraid to tell her how I truly feel.
And I feel like that anxiety makes you physically ill. Like having that anxiety and holding on to that and being scared to tell, your wife, the person that you're supposed to trust and depend on and, all of that, instead of telling her you're holding on to it. And that causes a lot of anxiety that can come out physically.
Oh yeah. And I wasn't present. Like I was with the kids for dinner, but I wasn't really with them. I was with them at their sports, but I wasn't really with them. I was so in my mind of anxiety and fear, like hyper anxiety, but I wasn't in the moment. I couldn't pay attention to what people were saying to me. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but like I couldn't pay attention to anything.
Yeah, I think for me,
and it was such a relief to get out of that and finally say, I'm done. I got to move back. I'm sorry. And I thought it was going to get like a massive anger response. And all I got was, I get it. I understand, honey. No problem. Let's move back. That's what I got. And all I had to do was that in the beginning.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's funny how much our mind and body are like intertwined in the fact that like I was looking back like 6 weeks before I got divorced, I was having a hard time sleeping. I was like kind of insomniac. I was kind of depressed. Like I kind of like, and all this stuff was going on. And like, I couldn't figure out what the cause was, but I think the cause was I was deeply unhappy and I wasn't being my true self. And it finally all came to a head and, got to, walk through that and experience that. And, then it like slowly starts to get better, right? Like, cause there's some solutions.
Well, even though it's painful to go through a breakup, there's actually relief of dropping the laundry list and having that little kid being like, oh my God, thank God I don't have to fucking do that anymore. Because that's exhausting and painful and scary, And then now you can start loving that kid.
Yeah, you can love the kid, but then also it's fun that because with my last partner, we had known each other so long and I was so like sick when we first got together that I never could be honest and vulnerable, like from the very start. So I had created these masks and these illusions that like I had to carry with for 8 years. And now it's like, I can, tell people I meet like, hey, I'm going through a divorce and, I'm feeling XYZ, where before I would be so worried to tell a girl that I'm feeling this way, or I'm going through this, or could be inadequate in any shape or form in my own mind. So I'm going to project that on them. And now I can just be honest and be like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Like, and it is what it is. Right.
So what do you think about that, Katie, about Blake being vulnerable, honest, emotional, and not being stoic and like grandiose, like, oh yeah, I'm going through a breakup. No big deal, whatever. Like, what do you think about him being real and being vulnerable? Like what's your perception of that? And how do you feel about that? Like as a woman,
I think there's like, I guess like beauty in the fire, I would say, like having someone feel comfortable enough with you to be honest and be vulnerable and be open and show their true feelings is something I feel like just the majority of the world doesn't do, much less your own partners. So there's like I think it builds like trust in the very beginning, just to like know who you're dealing with. And there's not like a facade, or like you think you're with somebody for 5 years and then, 5 years down the road, you find out like it's really not the person that you thought they were because they felt like they had to lie to you.
Right. Right. I know for me, like when I went through a traumatic situation, like a breakup or for me, a divorce, and I know I had a lot of shame and guilt around it, around my parents, my kids, my friends, just our like acquaintances. And I felt a lot of shame and guilt. Like I couldn't make it work. I failed. I'm not a good person. What's wrong with me? And I think when I finally admitted some of that shame and guilt and got that out, like there was freedom, like Blake's doing now. Like there's some freedom in that And it's like, wow, like I'm not a bad person. Like people still like me. They still love me. People still want to hang out with me. And it's like a beautiful thing to like be honest and vulnerable.
And I think it's the one thing too, it's like it's uncharted territory. So it's like, I think that's where like a lot of the fear comes from, as far as like once you let all of that go, it's like you've never really been in this place before. So it's scary, but it's rewarding, to say the least, I would say.
So do you have a situation in your life where that's like occurred, where you've been really hurt by a situation or experience, and like you were afraid to really share your true feelings and what you were going through?
Very much. I think I dealt with that when my parents were divorced. I was raised very religious. Like father was in the church, pedestal, had him up here. And then seeing the affair that happened with that, and then the how I was going to respond, as far as like saying how I really felt and didn't want to be timid and express like how it affected me, was something that I didn't deal with for probably like 7 years. Like I kind of separated myself from my father because I didn't know how to like address the situation without like offending him, and the fear of like him being mad at me because I didn't agree with certain things.
And did you finally speak your truth to him?
Yeah, like literally 3 weeks ago, actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
And how did you feel after you spoke your truth to him?
A huge sense of relief. Kind of made me feel silly because it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And so, like you said previous, like if you just would have said how you felt in the beginning, you could have prevented yourself from going through a lot of unnecessary trauma if you were just honest to begin with. But I think it's way easier said than done.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like you waited 7 years because you didn't want to deal with it and face it. Mm-hmm. And that probably affected you physically and emotionally over those years. And when you finally did it, you're like, I don't know why I didn't do this earlier,
Yeah, it was definitely, it was interesting for sure.
I mean, I'm 55 and I still have a hard time expressing my true feelings about my parents. Like everything's good. Everything's great. You're doing a great job. Like, and if I'm mad, I'll just ignore them or talk about them to other people. But I won't directly head on address them sometimes. Absolutely not. Because I'm like still scared to tell them the truth.
The thing you get a sinus infection instead.
You'll end up in on a health emergency.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Instead of like, Mom, that was very inappropriate. And I was hurt when you said that. And I'd appreciate it if you don't say that again or do that again, whatever it is. That's a normal, healthy response, to somebody who has an opinion, instead of like bottling it up and letting it just eat inside of you.
Yeah. And I think for me, like being honest is almost like a superpower now, because like when people say things that offend me or somebody says something that I don't agree with, instead of being like taking that on, I can just say, hey, what you said, it hurts my feelings, and, I wish you wouldn't have said it. And, I appreciate if you wouldn't say things like that going forward. And it's such and
then you did your part. Yeah.
And then it's like,
that's all you got to say.
Like it never came onto my heart or onto my mind, because it's like, it just was like in one ear and out the other. Like now, like when my ex-wife, sends something trying to get a rise out of me, it's just like, hey, I appreciate that. We can talk about it a future time, or, thanks for sharing is the one that I like to use a lot now. It's like, thanks for sharing that with me. And that's
even a lie.
Right?
That's even a lie too, by saying thanks for sharing.
No, but I mean,
you don't really care that you don't really wanted her to share that. So, that's even sort of a semi.
Well, when I said the thanks for sharing, it was like something that was very like, hey, there's this person that might want to buy the house. They live across the street, Sue.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for sharing,
okay.
Right? Like
I thought it was.
No, not like getting like, and where old Blake would have been like, oh my God, that's so great. Like, can you have it? Like, I really would have like engaged because I wanted to like carry the conversation on, where now it's like, thanks for sharing. It's like no different than if someone sends you a great deal to look at, Todd, and you're like, thanks for sharing.
Right. Yeah. I find that our words have such an impact and are so meaningful, every single word. And I got to be really, really careful with my words, even the words I say to myself. Like I, at lunch with
especially the words you say to yourself.
Especially the words you say to yourself.
I mean, I had lunch with my partner today, Chad, and he goes, "Oh, it's just my luck. Of course this happens to me." I mean, literally just that sentence is detrimental to ourselves. Like that's creating bad shit to us, right?
Yeah,
like we're saying, "Oh, but just my luck. Of course this is going to happen to me."
It's like you're manifesting the
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be really, really careful on what I say to myself and what I say to others. And if I am sad, that's fine. I could say like, I'm feeling sad at the moment, but I shouldn't say I'm a really sad person. I mean, it's like really careful, and it's almost semantics on what I say and how I say it to myself and to others, so I think it's very important.
And I think the thing that, Richard and I were talking about recently is like reframing and being able to like a lot of the times I get sideways, I let myself and I talk myself into that, going sideways. And it's like, it's more so just acknowledging what's going on. It is what it like, acknowledging it for what it is and taking action, whether it's, calling someone, calling you, Todd, calling Charles, calling Soraya, and just doing something about it instead of just like letting it fester and grow. And then you're creating these narratives in my head that aren't even true because I feel comfort in the shame and the, the guilt and the feeling bad when like, that's not true. Like that's not on me.
Yeah. I know when I went through my divorce, it was very, very, it took me a while to get to the place of self-forgiveness and self-acceptance because even though she asked for the divorce, I took all the blame. It was my fault. I should have been a better father. I should have been a better husband. I should have been a better lover. I should have been more attentive, blah, 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 on and on and on. And I took all the gain, all the pain, all the guilt. And it was like, not until I forgave myself and said, you know what? I didn't do all those things. I reframed it. I reframed the narrative, started to forgive myself. I actually got some relief.
Yeah. And I think part of, cause this has only happened, very recently and it's happened very quickly and abruptly. But I think I really am grateful because of ACA that I can take other people's experience and I can like really like, I can hear from you and I can hear from, guys like Perry and I can hear all these guys that have gone divorced. And it's like, hey man, the quicker that you realize this isn't your fault and this isn't on you, where if I didn't have the laundry list and I still had all these deep seated feelings of abandonment, like that's a very, very like dangerous place to be as, a codependent and, someone that deals with family dysfunction, right? Like that is like, if I didn't have the support system that I have, like, and didn't know about the laundry list and didn't know all that, like it's a different, like it's really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people, when they get into an emotional state of anxiety, fear, panic, they do something to get relief immediately. They start drinking heavily. They start disassociating heavily through something.
Yeah.
And I think we're realizing we can feel the feelings. We can talk about it. We can pray. We can meditate. We can help others. We can get into action. And we know eventually they're going to go away. Right. Yeah. And that's stuff we didn't know before. We had no idea. We just thought, oh shit, I better drink. I better get a girlfriend quick. Like, I gotta do something so I don't feel these feelings.
Yeah. And I think there's some, for at least for me, like I've never, and it's going to sound kind of weird, but I've never felt so alive going through like this extremely painful thing. Like I got to feel all the emotions and I got to feel all the ups and all the downs. And like, that's like truly what it means to be human, right? Like I didn't numb out. I didn't, turn to drugs and alcohol. I didn't do any of that. Like I got to experience the full limits of of these of the emotions, and like that's what it means to be like human, and like that is, you know, I think it's kind of cool, and I mean maybe it is. I got still stuff to unpack, and I'm just like using this to help myself feel better to get through the day, but it really is cool to be able to go through the emotion, and every day gets better. I still have bad moments, but like it's so beautiful to be able to like have these emotions, not stuff them anymore, let them come out, talk about them. I can cry around people. And it just is like, it's just cool to be myself. And like, I really, for the first time in my life, like, I don't want to say care, but like, I don't really worry about what other people are thinking because I'm crying or because I'm honest. And if someone is like, oh my God, you're so honest, like, don't, like, you're dumping on me. It's like, I don't want that person in my life anyways, because I want to be able to be intimate and be honest and be vulnerable and like, be like, hey, I'm really sad because of XYZ. Where like, I did that. had to be so strong in my marriage that like, I never got to be like sad or upset or frustrated or panicked or like that was
her job. That was her job. And it was
it was her job. Like I never could be like, hey, I'm really scared, you know, because then it would send everything into a panic, and then she's panicked, so then I'm not going to be okay. Where like now I can be like, hey, this is scary, and you know, it's all good.
And now it's Blake's time to have emotion and be okay with it and know that's normal and healthy and, starting to heal from the inside out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can cry and I can laugh and I can smile and I can like really genuinely enjoy. And I was listening back to a podcast episode that was like, and the amount of like bullshit that, pardon my language, that was coming out of my mouth, I was trying to justify the way that my then wife was treating me, but like being like quasi just taking overly responsible. Like I was like, how did I really said that about snoring? Like what, like I'm justifying to her about snoring and this, and I can't take the compliment. And it's like, people snore, deal with it. Like it is what it is. You know, right. And like, that's how, when you're in it. And I think from you, Todd and Charles, like you guys could see it way clearer than I could. And then once you get on the other side of it, you're like, wow, like that was, I get what you guys were talking about. Like that was, and I don't want to say I don't want to say anything bad about, my ex-wife or anything at all. But like just how unhappy I was, because I didn't want to leave and I didn't want to experience this stuff. But now that I've experienced it, like, I'm like, I would do that again tomorrow. Like I'll be at Todd's house and people are bringing sandwiches and I don't even remember them being there. Like we can do that again. And I would 100% be okay with it.
How long did it take you to realize?
Yeah. You know,
like for it to like click.
I think it's just been slowly as I've healing and I'm putting my pieces back together that like I realized like how unhappy I was and how like I used to do things so subconsciously that because of her, like I used to always take the middle seat and I wanted to be the window. Like why? And I'm paying for the flight. Like why would I do that? Right? Like where now it's like, oh, I want a window. I'm going to take a window. Like, you know, and it's just little things like that where, you know, I can say, hey, I'm going to go do this and I do it. And like, I don't have to like worry about, you know, her being like, I played golf with Todd's partner, Perry, yesterday. And like, it was so freeing not to like have to keep her updated or like be worried about what she's got going on. Like now it's like, and like, that's not normal. Like where like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Charles and I have experienced that many times on the golf course when our wives are calling us and we're like lying and bullshitting and making sure they don't get mad. Like, I mean, Charles, how many times have we done that?
And not just golf, with everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I vividly remember the golf course too.
It was mostly just, it had to do with just things I was doing where I was enjoying myself. the back of my mind, I knew that I shouldn't be, couldn't be, or needed to be lying about doing it. Right. It's just
like it's so unhealthy.
So simple.
It's so unhealthy to like want to do something, do it, enjoy it, and then be ashamed of it because you're worried someone's going to be mad at you. Like, you know, and it's just the thing I've come to realize is like family dysfunction affects everybody. And like, it's so funny. You go through some of this divorce and this traumatic stuff, and then you see other people going through it and you're like, yeah, I get it now. Like now I can see what Todd and Charles have seen there. Like, oh, I've been there. Like, just wait. Like, that's what Todd said. Would always say is like, you know, just wait. It's all gonna work out exactly how it should be. I think he knew how it was gonna work out, but he just, you know, let me have that experience all by myself.
Yeah. You can't tell someone what to do in relationships. That's what I find. I just find try not to be the laundry list. Like if you're going to be in a relationship, great, 100%. You get to decide what you want to do, but just try not to be the laundry list. You know, try not to be those 14 traits. You know, I mean, obviously we're all going to fall into them once in a while, but try not to live in those 14 traits in a relationship because you are truly lying and you're not in a real intimate relationship.
Yeah, and I think this is like the first time in my life that, especially with relationships with women, I've been honest from the start, right? Like every time I've ever been like in or around women, like I always want you to think I'm cooler than I am, richer than I am, like stronger than I am, more like emotionally sophisticated than I am. And now it's like, hey, I'm good enough exactly like how I am. And, you know, if you don't like it, it's okay.
Damn right, Blake. It's damn right.
But I can be honest and I can be vulnerable. And then it's like, it's truly like my true self. Cause like, I wasn't my true self. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like who I was becoming. And like that, to continue that for the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life, like, oh, that wouldn't have.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, and I can't relate because Todd Trump, Todd Goldwater, and Todd Rockefeller doesn't know what you're talking about. You know?
I thought you told people your name was Willie Rich.
Willie Rich.
I was the Trump family, the Rockefeller family, the Goldwater family. And the funny thing is Charles is running around town with the same fucking names.
Yeah. We were related, Todd. We didn't even know it.
The Rockefeller brothers.
Yeah. Well, this was a great podcast. I know we're quarter till, but you know, this was unbelievable. Katie, what's your opinion on sort of the material we're talking about and you know, this kind of podcast? What's your initial take on it?
I think it's very needed and very influential. I was listening before I got on to some of the past ones, and it kind of, some things that you say, just it clicks that, you know, you need to hear for you to actually like be able to process and walk through it yourself. You need to have someone else say it first, I guess. Like, it's just like, damn, I already know that, but you didn't know it in a way. But I think you guys are doing a great job with this. I think it's A1 material for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why we started it. You know, we just thought it was needed, and obviously we needed it, and it worked for us. And we just wanted to pass it on and carry the message to people that may not know there's solutions out there to this kind of pain and trauma.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
all right. Well, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it. And, you know, please review us. Give us reviews, give us comments, give us feedback. If you want to come on the podcast, let us know. If you want a red book, let us know. We'll mail you one. And, I hope you have a great week, and I hope you're nice to my friend this week.